The Mahabharata in English, translated by Kesari Mohan Ganguly during 19th century. Now entering into Chapter 1 of Mahabharata. Title: Shall I recite Mahabharata? Said Saudi. Adi Parva, Section 1a. This is part of Upaparva. Inside that it is Anukramanika Parva. Now into the section Adi Parva, Section 1a, the Mahabharata. Om. Having bowed down to Narayana and Nara, the most exalted male being, and also to the goddess Saraswati, must the word Jaya be uttered. Ugrasrava, the son of Lomaharshana, surnamed Sauti, well versed in the Puranas, bending with humility, one day approached the great sages of rigid vows, sitting at their ease, who had attended the 12 years sacrifice of Saunaka, surnamed Kulapati, in the forest of Naimisha. Those ascetics, wishing to hear his wonderful narrations, presently began to address him who had thus arrived at that recluse abode of the inhabitants of the forest of Naimisha. Having been entertained with due respect by those holy men, he saluted those munis, that is, sages, with joined palms, even all of them, and inquired about the progress of their asceticism. Then, all the ascetics being again seated, the son of Lomaharshana humbly occupied the seat that was assigned to him. Seeing that he was comfortably seated and recovered from fatigue, one of the rishis, beginning the conversation, asked him, "Whence comest thou, O lotus-eyed Sauti? And where hast thou spent the time? Tell me, who asked thee in detail?" Accomplished in speech, Sauti, thus questioned, gave in the midst of that big assemblage of contemplative munis a full and proper answer in words consonant with their mode of life. Saudi said, having heard the diverse sacred and wonderful stories which were composed in his Mahabharata by Krishna Dvaipayana and which were recited in full by Vaisambhayana at the snake sacrifice of the high-souled royal sage Janamejaya, and in the presence also of the chief of princes, the son of Parikshit, and having wandered about, visiting many sacred waters and holy shrines, I journeyed to the country venerated by the Dvijas and called Samanta Panchaka, where formerly was fought the battle between the children of Kuru and Pandu, and all the chiefs of the land ranged on either side. Thence, anxious to see you, I come into your presence. Yea, reverend sages, all of whom are to me as Brahma. Yea, greatly blessed, who shine in this place of sacrifice with the splendor of the solar fire. Ye who have concluded the silent meditations and have fed the holy fire, and yet who are sitting without care. And, O ye Dvijas, shall I repeat? Shall I recount the sacred stories collected in the Puranas containing precepts of religious duty and of worldly profit, or the acts of illustrious saints and sovereigns of mankind? The Rishi replied, "The Purana, first promulgated by the great Rishi Dvaipayana, and which after having been heard both by the gods and the Brahma Rishis, was highly esteemed, being the most eminent narrative that exists, diversified both in diction and division, possessing subtitle meanings logically combined and gleaned from the Vedas as a sacred work, composed in elegant language, included the subjects of other books. It is elucidated by other Shastras and comprehendeth the sense of the four Vedas. We are desirous of hearing that history also called Bharata, the holy composition of the wonderful Vyasa, which dispelleth the fear of evil, just as it was cheerfully recited by the Rishi Vaisampayana, under the direction of Dvaipayana himself, at the snake sacrifice of Raja Janamejaya. Saudi then said, having bowed down to the primordial being Isana, to whom multitudes make offerings and who is adored by the multitude, who is the true incorruptible one, Brahma, perceptible, imperceptible, eternal, who is both a non-existing and an existing, non-existing being, who is the universe and also the distinct from the existing and non-existing universe, who is the creator of high and low, the ancient, exalted, inexhaustible one, who is Vishnu, beneficent and the beneficence itself, worthy of all immovable, worthy of all preference, pure and immaculate, who is Hari, the ruler of the faculties, the guide of all things movable and immovable. I will declare the sacred thoughts of the illustrious sage Vyasa, of marvelous deeds and worshipped here by all. Some bards have already published this history, some are now teaching it, and others in like manner will hereafter promulgate it upon the earth. It is a great source of knowledge established throughout the three regions of the world. It is possessed by the twice born both in detailed and compendious forms. It is the delight of the learned for being embellished with elegant expressions, conversations, human and divine, and a variety of poetical measures. In this world, when it was destitute of brightness and light, and enveloped all around in total darkness, there came into being, as the primal cause of creation, a mighty egg, the one inexhaustible seed of all created beings. It is called Mahadivya and was formed at the beginning of the Yuga, in which we are told was the true light Brahma, the eternal one, the wonderful and inconceivable being present alike in all places, the invisible and subtitle cause, whose nature partaketh of entity and non-entity. From this egg came out the Lord, Pitamaha Brahma, the one and only Prajapati, with Suraguru and Stanu. Then appeared the 21 Prajapatis. They are Manu, Vashishta and Parameshti, 10 Prachetas, Daksha and the 7 sons of Daksha. Then appeared the man of inconceivable nature, whom all the rishis know, and so the Visve Devas. the Adityas, the Vasus, and the Twinaswins, the Yakshas, the Sadyas, the Pisachas, and the Gukhyas and the Pitris. After these were produced, the wise and most holy Brahma Rishis, and the numerous Raja Rishis distinguished by every noble quality. So the water, the heavens, the earth, the air, the sky, the points of the heavens, the years, the seasons, the months, the fortnights, called Pakshas, with day and night in due succession, and thus were produced all things which are known to mankind. And what is seen in the universe, whether animate or inanimate, of created things, will at the end of the world, and after the expiration of the Yuga, be again confounded. And at the commencement of other Yugas, all things will be renovated and, like the various fruits of the earth, succeed each other in the due order of their seasons. Thus continueth perpetually to revolve in the world, without beginning and without end, this wheel which causeth the destruction of all things. The generation of Devas, in brief, was 33,333. The sons of Div were Brihat Banu, Chakshus, Atma Vibhavasu, Savita, Richika, Arka, Banu, Asabaha, and Ravi. Of these Vivaswans of old, Makhya was the youngest, whose son was Devavrata. The latter had for his son Suvrata, who, we learn, had 3 sons, Dasajyoti, Satajyoti, and Sahasrajyoti, each of them producing numerous offspring. The illustrious Dasajyoti had 10,000, Satyajyoti 10 times that number, and Sahasrajyoti 10 times the number of Satyajyoti's offspring. From these are descended the families of the Kurus, of the Yadus, and of Bharata, the family of Yati, and of Kshavagu, also of all the Raja Rishis. Numerous also were the generations produced, and very abundant were their creatures and their places of abode. The mystery which is threefold, the Vedas, Yoga, and Vijnana Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Also, various books upon the subject of Dharma, Artha, and Kama, also rules for the conduct of mankind, also histories and discourses with various Srutis, all of which having been seen by the Rishi Vyasa are here in due order mentioned as a specimen of the book. The Rishi Vyasa published this mass of knowledge in both a detailed and an abridged form. It is the wish of the learned in the world to possess the details and the abridgment. Some read the Bharata beginning with the initial mantra, others with the story of Astika, others with Uparichara, while some Brahmanas study the whole. Men of learning display their various knowledge of the institutes in commenting on the composition. Some are skillful in explaining it, while others in remembering its contents. The son of Satyavati, having, by penance and meditation, analyzed the eternal Veda, afterwards composed this holy history, when that learned Brahmarishi of strict vows, the noble Dvaipayana Vyasa, offspring of Parasara, had finished this greatest of narrations, he began to consider how we might teach it to his disciples. and the possessor of the six attributes. Brahma, the world's preceptor, knowing of the anxiety of the Rishi Dvaipayana, came in person to the place where the latter was, for gratifying the saint and benefiting the people. And when Vyasa, surrounded by all the tribes of Munis, saw him, he was surprised and standing with joined palms, he bowed and ordered a seat to be brought. And Vyasa, having gone round him, who is called Hiranyagarbha, seated on the distinguished seat, stood near it. And being commanded by Brahma Parameshti, he sat down near the seat, full of affection and smiling in joy. Then the greatly glorious Vyasa, addressing Brahma Parameshti, said, O divine Brahma, by me a poem hath been composed which is greatly respected. The mystery of the Veda and what other subjects have been explained by me. The various rituals of the Upanishads with the Angas, the compilation of the Puranas and history formed by me and name after the three divisions of time, past, present and future. The determination of the nature of decay, fear, disease, existence and non-existence. A description of creeds and of the various modes of life. The rule for the four castes and the import of all the Puranas. An account of asceticism and of the duties of a religious student. The dimensions of the sun and moon. The planets, constellations and stars, together with the duration of the 4 ages. The Rig, Sama, Yajurvedas. Also the Adhyatma. The science is called Nyaya or Theosophy and treatment of diseases, charity and Pasupada Dharma. Both celestial and human for particular purposes. Also a description of places of pilgrimage and other holy places of rivers, mountains, forests, the ocean, of heavenly cities and the kalpas, the art of war, the different kinds of nations and languages, the natures of the manners of the people, and the all-pervading spirit. All these have been represented. But, after all, no writer of this work is to be found on earth. Brahma said, I esteem thee for thy knowledge of divine mysteries. Before the holy body of celebrated Munis distinguished for the sanctity of their lives. I know thou hast revealed the divine word, even from its first utterance, in the language of truth. Thou hast called thy present work a poem, wherever it shall be a poem. There shall be no poets whose works may equal the descriptions of this poem, even as the 3 other modes called asrama are ever unequal in merit to the domestic asrama. Let Ganesha be thought of, O Muni, for the purpose of writing the poem. So they said. Brahma, having thus spoken to Vyasa, retired to his own abode. Then Vyasa began to call to mind Ganesha. And Ganesha, obviator of obstacles, ready to fulfill the desires of his votaries, was no sooner thought of than he repaired to the place where Vyasa was seated. And when he had been saluted and was seated, Vyasa addressed him thus. O guide of the Ganas, be thou the writer of the Bharata, which I have formed in my imagination and which I am about to repeat. Ganesha, upon hearing this address, thus answered, I will become the writer of thy work, provided my pen do not for a moment cease writing. And Vyasa said unto that divinity, wherever there be anything thou dost not comprehend, cease to continue writing. Ganesha, having signified his assent by repeating the word O, proceeded to write, and Vyasa began, and by way of diversion, he knit the knots of composition exceeding close, by doing which he dictated this work according to his engagement. I am, continued Southey, I am acquainted with 8,800 verses, and so is Sukha, and perhaps Sanjaya. From the mysteriousness of their meaning, O Muni, no one is able to this day to penetrate those closely knit difficult slokas. Even the omniscient Ganesha took a moment to consider, while Vyasa, however, continued to compose other verses in great abundance. The wisdom of this work, like unto an instrument of applying collyrium, hath opened the eyes of the inquisitive world, blinded by the darkness of ignorance. As the sun dispelled the darkness, so doth the Bharata by its discourses on religion, profit, pleasure, and final release, dispel the ignorance of men. As the full moon by its mild light expandeth the buds of the water lily, so this Purana, by exposing the light of the Sruti, hath expanded the human intellect. By the lamp of history, which destroyeth the darkness of ignorance, the whole mansion of nature is properly and completely illuminated. This work is a tree, of which the chapter of contents is the seed. The divisions called Pauloma and Astika are the root. The part called Sambhava is the trunk. The books called Sabha and Aranya are the roosting perches. The books called Arani is the knitting knots. The books called Virata and Udyoga the pith. The book named Bhishma the main branch. The book called Drona the leaves. The book called Karna the far flowers. The book named Salya their sweet smell. The books entitled Stri and Aishika the refreshing shade. The book called Shanti the mighty fruit. The book called Asvamedha the immortal sap. The denominated Asrama Vesika the spot where it groweth. And the book called Mausala is an epitome of the Vedas and held in great respect by the virtuous Brahmanas. The tree of the Bharata, inexhaustible to mankind as the clouds, shall be as a source of livelihood to all distinguished poets. Southey continued, I will now speak of the undying, flowery, and fruitful productions of this tree, the possessed of pure and pleasant taste, and not to be destroyed even by the immortals. Formerly, the spirited and virtuous Krishna Dvaipayana, by the injunctions of Bhishma, the wise son of Ganga, and of his own mother, became the father of 3 boys who were like the 3 fires by the two wives of Vichitravirya, and having thus raised up Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura, he returned to his recluse abode of prosecute to his religious exercise. It was not till after these were born, grown up, and departed on the supreme journey that the great Rishi Vyasa published the Bharata in this region of mankind. When being solicited by Janamejaya and thousands of Brahmanas, he instructed his disciple Vaisambayana, who was seated near him, and he, sitting together with the Sadasyas, recited the Bharata during the intervals of the ceremonies of the sacrifice, being repeatedly urged to proceed. With this, Adi Parva, section 1a. Shall I recite Mahabharata? This section ends.